the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the business of esports. Keyboard to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul Dewalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Barada. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the love, the 5-star ratings and reviews. Thank you for sharing the podcast with your friends, your family, your colleagues. If you haven't done any of those things, go leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, maybe even go subscribe to our sister podcasts, Meta Business and Meta Woman. If you haven't checked those out yet, they're really great. It's a lot of like business of esports, but focused on the metaverse. And go buy some great business of esports merch. I never pushed the merch, Jimmy. There you go. But I saw the hoodie, businessofesports.shop, guys, or you can find the link from thebusinessofesports.com, which I know many of you know the website. Jimmy, how's it going? How you doing this week?
Paul, long time no see.
We've only been recording content all day, so you can't tear this wall down. The audience has to be, they have to believe in the magic of, it's not television, but, the magic of content production here.
Recording content all day and a 5-hour phone call last night and business as usual otherwise. So it's been good. It's all good stuff. And kind of in that light, actually, and maybe a controversial topic, I was watching a documentary on Kanye West on Netflix. That's a 3-part series that's getting released. And he had the foresight in like 1995 through 2006 when his first album launched, where he had a well-known TV personality that followed him around just recording everything because he knew he was going to be big one day, or maybe that videographer knew that Kanye was onto something. And so all this amazing content before he ever had a deal signed. And I just thought how remarkable, because we're obviously in the content business. We record as much as we can, and we think, how can we repurpose content and create more and grow more? And I just thought, for such a controversial figure and a visionary, he really had, I think, that kind of, like I said, advanced kind of planning and knowledge that, hey, I need to capture this because I'm going to use it someday.
Jimmy, are you suggesting we need to get a camera crew to follow you around? Is this what I'm hearing? Is this
each of us, really?
Are you lobbying for this officially?
A camera crew, a driver, someone to taste my
all
food.
All business expenses, right? Look, a more recent version. Gary Vaynerchuk's a big proponent of this. Like, I don't think he knows much about the gaming space, so I don't know how relevant that is here. But like, he's a big believer in like document everything you're doing. Me personally, what I always found fun is every business I built, every business startup I was involved with, I always think it's fun to take like the picture of the group, the small group, when you're sort of still in the shitty little office, in the early days. I think you go back and look at those pictures fondly, especially obviously if the business is a big success. It's fun to go back and look at those pictures. So it may seem weird and awkward because I do that sometimes. I'll take a picture of the whole team in the office or whatever. But they're fun to look back on when, you're 200 or 300 people.
Also fun to know that thanks to you and our team, we actually have quite a nice office in New York as well. So probably not comparable to some of your other projects that I know did well, but that's actually a cool story.
Jimmy, we have an amazing, absolutely amazing guest this week. I feel like we only get better and better on this podcast, and I hope, I genuinely hope that our viewers appreciate the variety that we bring them, because I think there's a lot of effort here to bring different viewpoints, different perspectives of gaming and esports, because it can be it can be a little bit of an echo chamber. I know you and I have talked about that and talked about it publicly. But we have today a very special guest. We have Eric Hartness, who is the vice president of esports at Learfield. Eric, welcome to the Business of Esports podcast.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Eric, for our viewers who maybe don't know much about you, would love for you to give them a bit of your background, how you got into gaming, why you got into gaming, the interest in esports, what Learfield does and what you're focused on there. Some of the Eric story and the Learfield story, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm an old G, so that could take quite a bit of time. I've been in this business for over 20 years now. I never thought I'd say that, but it has been a while. I got into the gaming business back in 2000 with EA, as I was their director of database marketing back then. Back when the internet was just happening, we were building websites, we were creating newsletters for our fans, and helping the studios do those things. So it was quite an interesting time back then, and it was called EA.com is what I joined, and I lasted throughout that after EA.com went away, and became the vice president of marketing at the Redwood Shore studio, and worked on titles like Dead Space, Godfather, The Simpsons, Tiger Woods Wii Golf, when the Wii first came out, and a lot of fun things like that. I was also, and this kind of leads into esports eventually, but I was around when the consoles, went wired. That's what we called it back then. And you could suddenly play online, and there was digital content that you could download and virtual currencies. So I'd also worked on Ultima Online, all the online products, games at EA I was involved with. The Sims Online, Ultima Online, Earth and Beyond, you name it. My marketing team worked on those things. So we kind of knew that business when Xbox and Sony went online too. And we helped the studios understand how to generate content for those, and also helped from a marketing perspective to help get people engaged with those titles and that kind of content. And I was there for 9 years, and I worked at a few startups. I worked at Amazon Game Studios, and that's where I got turned on to Twitch when Twitch first came on board, and well, not when it first came on board, when Amazon acquired them in 2014. That's when I first found out about them, and started getting engaged with them. And that's when I first started learning about esports as well, because after I left the Amazon Game Studios, I went to Bandai Namco, and that's where I got involved in esports. Coupled with my learnings from Twitch and Ultima Online and everything that we had done at EA, it kind of culminated at Bandai with Tekken, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and Soul Calibur. I met Harada-san, who's the godfather of Tekken, at San Diego Comic-Con. We were having a cocktail outside, taking a break from the floor, and talking about his vision for Tekken in the U.S. and how it could be an esports title. And I was really taken by that, and agreed almost right then and there to help them do that in the United States. So one of the I was vice president of marketing at Bandai. One of the product manager for Mark Religioso, the product manager for Tekken at the time. He and I kind of banded together and set out to find out about the FGC, the fighting game community in the States. And it was a great ride. I met so many wonderful people, and that community is so passionate. And we basically, took the Tekken box. We had to buy arcade boards from Japan because Tekken 7 wasn't out yet. And we had to ship these things, by boat to the States, and then ship them to all of the FGC tournament events. And we had to have 10 of these things. They were heavy. These are arcade boards. And we, got some people to help us. Mark Julio, Mark Mann, as he's known in the FGC, and Rick and several other people helped us do this. But we went to all the local fighting game communities, made friends with everybody, learned what the community wanted. And so we were prepared when Tekken came out. And, fast forward, we created the Tekken World Tour with the international finals here in the States. And then one year we had it in Sweden. The next year was in Singapore. And that's really where I got passionate about it, right? And I thought, where can we take this? And where can we go from there? And that's what led me to Learfield, because I think that the college esports scene is the next great frontier of esports. The pro scene is pretty well locked down. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more growth in there, and it's going to expand tremendously. But the publishers and the pros have a pretty good system down, and the college scene is really fragmented and open for somebody like Learfield, believe, to come in and help create a better esports environment for all of the players and all of the companies involved in it.
Eric, could you talk to Learfield specifically? Like historically, what is the expertise there, and what was the impetus for them to get into esports? Was it you? Was it were they already doing it before you got there? Yeah, I get it. So they were doing it. Learfield was already involved with esports. It's kind of started a little bit pre-pandemic, but the pandemic really helped spur it on. They are Learfield has the multimedia rights and partnerships with over 175 schools. So they've been in college athletics for decades. They also run the Learfield radio network, over 170 broadcast stations. And if you would listen to football, basketball, baseball, any collegiate sports, there's a good chance that you're listening to it on a Learfield network. They also have all the brand sponsorships. If Allstate puts up the nets behind the goalposts, that comes through Learfield. Learfield has a ticketing company called Paciolan. The CLC, the college licensing company, is a Learfield company. Learfield owns Sidearm, which builds and maintains over 1,300 college athletic websites. We also manage a lot of the college social media channels. So we have a rich, deep history of integration and knowledge with college athletics. In fact, we have Learfield people are co-located in the college athletic offices. So, for example, the University of Arkansas, which is one of our partners, there's 10 people co-located in the athletic department. So we have really close ties with the athletic departments as well. So the idea is, hey, take our traditional knowledge of our extensive knowledge of traditional college sports and extend that to the esports platform. That's one of the reasons why, too. You might ask later why we started with Madden, but that was what there's a reason in there. So that's one of the reasons I joined, because of their partnership with all the schools and with all the brands and the beginnings of the publisher partnerships that we've developed before and since I've been here. And in fact, back to my Twitch story. So one of my first partners at Twitch, when I was at Bandai Namco, because we partnered with Twitch to create the Tekken World Tour, he actually was working with Learfield and introduced me to them to come lead their esports initiative. So kind of, the game industry, as y'all know, and we all know, is pretty small and pretty close. But, my industry connections through Twitch is how I landed. One of the reasons how I landed at Learfield. I mean, Eric, you sort of led me to the sort of the next question I had, which is why start with Madden? Now, let me ask you that, but let me connect it to sort of the broader question I was curious about, which is how much of the traditional sports, college sports knowledge translates to like giving Learfield an advantage from a college esports perspective. And let me sort of go a little bit deeper with the question, which is, you mentioned esports being fragmented, right? College esports being fragmented. would you say Learfield is like especially well positioned to tackle that because of the college traditional sports experience? Like, does it translate well? I don't know if you can provide any color there.
Yeah, I believe it does translate there. I'll start with Madden first. Madden is a sports sim, obviously, and so the thinking and the reality is that the athletic departments, as well as the schools themselves, and importantly, the school's fans could relate to a sports sim much more so than they could relate to other types of games. And so, what I run into a lot here and talking to the esports programs at the campus, they say, Madden's not an esport. What are you talking about? Why aren't we doing Call of Duty? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing, League of Legends? But the reality is because we thought that would Madden and the sports sims, the closest thing to the traditional sports that we're associated with the athletic departments, would help us ease in, to the space of the college space and leverage those deep partnerships that we have with the schools.
Eric, why do you think schools are like, I think something we hear on the podcast a lot is working with colleges or high schools, but this is obviously most relevant to you in the college context. There's a lot of discussion around them being difficult customers or a tough nut to crack, right? There's, like you said, it's still a fragmented market. Why do you think that the college market has been tough for anyone to sort of totally dominate today? And second part of the question is, where do you think the NCAA plays into this, if at all?
Yeah, one of the reasons it's tough to crack, I think, is because it's such a large industry. I mean, there's over 3,000 colleges in the U.S., right? And they had different statures, different focus, different organizations. So that's one of the challenges. But with Learfield and our partnership, so we have the official athletic marks. I think that's part of the fragmentation too, is because a lot of companies have come in and they don't have publisher agreements, and they're going into something like the college space that has a lot of eyes on it, right? Having a community event, with hundreds of people participating is a lot different than having something at the University of Texas or the University of Alabama or the University of Ohio State University. Those places that have a lot more eyes on them, and it's also the marks. The colleges are very protective of their marks. The Texas Longhorns and the Arkansas Razorback and the Crimson Tide, elephant, and all of those logos are part of college athletics. And so they're very protective of those and what can use those. And that's one of the things that Learfield brings to the table, is that we, with our association with over 175 schools, those marks are what we help bring to the table to make these official athletic events that the fans can recognize, that the schools can support, and that the brands can get behind, as well as the publishers. So we have, publisher partnerships for Madden and for Rocket League, and we're going to announce more soon.
Let me touch on the publishers quickly then. Do you think, as Learfield in the college esports space becomes more and more successful, more and more traction, right? More schools, more tournaments, more games, more of everything. At some point, do you become a threat to the publishers? Like, do they start seeing you potentially as the enemy, where, they're maybe leaving dollars on the table by having you guys, being the sort of the dominant force in the college esports scene? And I ask this because in the, the pro scene, a lot of the publishers own their own esports leagues, right? Like it's not outsourced to someone else. It's organized by the publisher. It's tightly controlled by the publisher. At some point, do they see you as a threat, or do they see you today as just like a gift from heaven, right? Like that you're taking sort of the complication of the college esports space sort of out of their hands and building something interesting out of it?
Yeah. no one's ever seen me as a gift from heaven, unfortunately.
No, but like the publishers hold so much power, right? In esports,
publishers do have power, and they do, and there could be a threat later on. It works both ways, right? Business happens, but right now we are seeing, we're complementing each other very well on the publisher side. We respect their IP because we're in the IP business too. We respect their IP, they respect ours. They do spend a lot of time in the pro space, and they understand now how hard it is and how much investment it requires. And so Learfield is investing, big money into this, in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the promotion, in terms of the prize pools. And so the publishers like that too, because we're complementing their investment, and we're bringing the school marks to it. So they're creating official, collegiate national championships, which brings awareness and more players, for their games, and even to a new, broader audience, the college, the historical college sports fans. So it's very complimentary right now, and we're having very good conversations and agreements with several publishers. But yeah, I can't tell the future, and who knows what will happen later on.
Like Learfield obviously drives revenue from the college esports space. Do the publishers look like, and I know it's probably can't be generalized across the board, but do most of the publishers look at the college esports space as, a great marketing opportunity to bring their games to more fans? Or are they looking at the college esports space and thinking, we really need to drive revenue to the bottom line here, right? Like that this has to be a revenue driver.
I think it's more about, more fans, creating more fans. I sat in the publisher side before, right? I was, leading, the tech and esports and Soul Calibur and Dragon Ball Fighters for Bandai Namco. And we were always, at least there, and a lot of other marketing people I've talked to, it's more about generating, fandom for the title and for the franchise, and making the community stronger. Because, we all do that because, later on, the bigger your community, the more they'll play, the more digital goods they'll buy, the more, it's good for the business. It's good for the community. So there's always, from companies, there's always dollars associated at the end, but they see it, I believe, in building their community and fan base, which will lead to more game sales down the road.
I kind of want to pick at that a little bit, Eric, and I didn't want to throw you off, Paul, but this is kind of, I have so many questions about your early work history, and I see this really tying into that well. I can't recall a guest that we've had, at least in recent memory, with quite the work history you have in doing this for so long at such a high level. I wanted to particularly take that, what you just shared, about growing awareness and community around these titles, applying it towards your time specifically at EA, because we have a lot of listeners on the show that are businesses at varying levels of their life cycle, and what comes fundamentally, I think, or naturally to you, isn't always well known, especially to myself. So for starters, I was curious, some tried and true methods of marketing that you employed at EA on some of those early titles that remain consistent with your efforts today, as well as things that you noticed that have changed and what those trends are as far as a successful marketing campaign to grow that audience, to grow that fandom and that community. And of course, if there's any differences between the college audience and supporting, those communities versus, I think, the larger demographic.
Well, that's a lot to unpack there, Jimmy.
It's loaded. I know. I'm sorry. Please do your best.
Yeah. From a marketing perspective, community has, I learned about community in Ultima Online, and it's, community managers they've come a long way, right? They used to be in, what did you call those little chat rooms, or, not chat rooms anyway, but they were, and I remember, and I was director of marketing at that point, and, going to Austin, going to the Origin studio there, and talking about, at that time, community managers worked on the dev team. And, community didn't want any marketing people talking to their community, because we were the slimy marketing people, right? And I was teaching, hey, we're going to send a newsletter. We're going to create a newsletter, an email newsletter. Send. Why would we do that? Anyway, it's but we finally overcame all that and said, no, I want to we want to give more information to them and learn about the community, how we can build this, how we can make the games better, how we can grow the community. Anyway, because the lifeblood at OU and UO at that time was getting more people to play it, right? People online needed more people to play. And so we're like, we're going to help you get more people in to grow your community. You just got to help us. But, that has always stayed true, but it's gotten bigger and better with more, it sounds just so silly now, but, with the internet, how everybody's wired, everybody's got cell phones, everybody's, connected. It wasn't like that, but it's that technology and the gamer passion I've seen just grow tremendously from that standpoint. And we still focus on community. We just do it in different methods. When I started, there wasn't Facebook. I remember when Facebook first, came online and trying to figure out how to use, Facebook to grow our Godfather community back then. And it's a lot of the things stay the same. It's just different techniques to communicate with your customers, being authentic with them and understanding what they need and trying to fulfill those needs is one of the things that I've seen consistent, in the time that I've been in the game industry.
So growing and leveraging community, this is an awesome topic that Paul and I talk about quite a bit. And I wanted to tie it into a question that we've had come up on the show and topics that we've discussed with certain news releases. I think it also ties in a bit to your time with Amazon Game Studios, because, one of the surest ways, or at least a common way that we see people leveraging communities of others, is through affiliate marketing, finding these popular streamers, these content creators, and saying, hey, pay my game or play my game exclusively for a number of weeks, or whatever the term length may be. And we've debated at length, I think, on this show, that type of marketing vehicle or initiative. I want to get your take on that, what you've seen, if that's successful or not. I feel like your insight here would settle that debate for a lot of us, and I'm curious.
It won't settle the debate, but I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy, because I meant that I lost that thought. That was one of my another story I was going to share as I was rambling on about community. My first influencer campaign. Okay. And we've gotten way off topic from esports.
Did they even call it? Was it even called an influencer campaign at the time?
No. But I've shared this story before, at the conferences, in the bars and stuff like that, talking about the old days and things. But Dead Space. So Dead Space was, the first horror game for EA, and Glenn Schofield was the executive producer on it, and I was the vice president of marketing on it, and we were partners on this. It was all Glenn's idea. I had nothing to do with it. It was all Glenn's idea. I was just the marketing guy, and I had a whole team under. We had a whole team. I'm saying I'm the marketing guy, but it was a marketing team. Great team, by the way, too. I still in contact with a lot of them, and Glenn sometimes
great
as
game
well.
Also,
yeah, thank you. They made a fantastic game. But so we were trying to how are we going to, we've never marketed to horror people before. We didn't know anything about the industry. How are we going to get this horror game that Glenn and his incredible team developed and get people to buy it? It's like, and someone on the team, God, it might have been Andrew, who was the guy. Someone said, well, we got to go out after, horror fans. And we went to Resident, we found Resident Evil, a Resident Evil community. We reached out to some of those, fan clubs, and we reached out to horror magazine fan club, just anything we could find. And we brought them to EA. We had to convince, the execs that we were going to spend money to bring these people to EA and get their feedback on the game. And it was like the Resident Evil guys were like, we like Resident Evil. And we're like, but yeah, we know that. We love Resident Evil too. We want to make another horror game, and we want your input on it. And so we brought them for like a weekend to EA, and played games with them, hung out with them, gave them watch horror movies with them, and gave them like early glimpses into the game, and kind of had focus groups with them and got their feedback. And then they went back and posted on their, on their websites or their chat boards or wherever they, this was, a long time ago. And that was our first kind of foray into influencer marketing, without really.
Eric, it's such a great story, but it hit, I'm laughing to myself because it hits so close to home. And I have a question at the end of this, but I'm going to tell my own story here. Ultima Online was a great game. And if you remember, they announced not really a sequel, but Ultima X, right? It was sort of going to be the next big MMO.
I was gone by then.
But I thought what was interesting is at the time when Ultima X was announced, I was a huge EverQuest player, right? Which was the competing MMO. My dad was a huge EverQuest player. In fact, was the leader of essentially one of the biggest guilds in EverQuest. And what EA did was they invited him, all expenses paid, to San Francisco to get a sneak peek at the new Ultima game. And my dad was like a very senior executive at IBM at the time. He didn't have time to actually go on this trip to get a sneak peek at the game. So my brother and I went in his place.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
So we got this free trip to San Francisco. EA, gave everyone this really cool sneak peek at the game. And there was a whole bunch of people from other games, mostly like influencers call it, although I didn't think I was an influencer at the time, from people who played the other games. I thought that was so genius. Like, this stuck in my head forever. I will always remember this. It's weird because I feel like even though game companies, developers activate influencers on Twitch, some of that like hands-on community, it's a little bit of like guerrilla marketing at a very kind of ground level, doesn't exist anymore. And maybe you say, you tell me I'm totally wrong. And the influencer marketing that game companies do on Twitch is the same now. But I'm curious, like, as someone who's had so many years of experience in the industry, what are some of these big changes that you've seen, for better or for worse?
Yeah, that's a great story, Paul. I'd love to. Offline, we got to figure out when that was, and heck, I might have been there. I don't know. But what has changed? I mean, that's changed a lot. Just and we also used to use magazines, right? And there used to be a great portfolio of magazines out there that we'd love to get on the cover of. We always strive to get the game on the cover of the magazine. I personally like the influencer. I don't like with Bandai. We didn't really. I don't like the paid. I'm going to get myself in trouble here. I think the influencer is great. I think the channels that we have are great because that's what our fans are using, right?
It's obviously effective, right? There's no question of the effectiveness. Everyone watches Twitch. If Shroud is playing game XYZ, no question, I'm going to go download it. I guess, have we reached peak game marketing? Like, I've asked this question to a whole bunch of people who've come on the podcast, and there's no one like you who has had 20 years and seen sort of the evolution of games marketing the same way you have. And I'm just curious where you think we end up with this, right? Is it just influencers now and you got to get every big influencer to play your game on Twitch? Or is there some other path? Is there some next level that, we don't know about yet, or we haven't seen yet?
That next level. No, they are. I don't know what it is. If I did, I would go into the consulting business. But
fair.
But I know it's a challenge, and we're already thinking, how do you break through the influencers, right? Because there's so many of them now, and there's the micro influencer strategy where you get hundreds of smaller ones, and to do it, because you can't just get the big giant one anymore, or you throw money at everybody. And it's tough on that. And I don't know what the silver bullet is. And I think the companies who have the big war chests will continue to use the big ones, and other scrappy ones will try to figure out how to come around the side. It's going to be a tough business.
Are there other big trends that you've seen over the last 20 years? Like, again, good or bad, big changes you've seen in the industry? And it can be generalized to gaming, not just esports specifically, obviously.
Well, I mean, the obvious one, the whole, move to digital, right? I mean, you could probably Google me somewhere. I think I was at an E3 conference one year where it said you'd never be able to download a game. The pipes will never be that big. Some really good forethought there. So you ask me to prognosticate on the gaming industry, doesn't
But are there any trends that you've seen that, that make you incredibly excited about the next 5 years, for example? And maybe it's college esports related.
I think the esports, that's what I'm excited about, that was the most recent thing in this college esports. I've been in a long time. It's hard to stay excited that long, right? But I'm not just saying that because I'm doing college esports, but I think esports we've just scratched the surface. You see it on ESPN now, and you see other people who aren't gamers or familiar with the industry. Like, I have lots of friends, my age and who don't know about esports, right? And I have to explain it to them. I still have my people my age, calling me that they're so concerned that their kid wants to be in the gaming business. I have to talk them off the ledge. And say, it's like, no, I've been in it 20 years. It's a legit industry. It's credible. There's all kinds of careers in the industry. There's still so many people who think gamers are in the basement. And which is wild because we're so close to it, right? And we know how passionate people are and how popular it is. And now there's, the sports celebrities and the musicians and everybody's into gaming now, where before, it wasn't that cool, and now they're asking, publishing companies if how they can get in on these things earlier, when we used to have to beg them. Now games are making them cool. So I still think we've still got a lot of growth in us. And as our population gets older, it's going to even get more mainstream. And I think that there'll be, there's a lot of discussion this year about, esports in the Olympics and things like that. Whoever thought the X game kind of sports would be in the Olympics? No one. But then, they're the superstars of the Olympics now. And I think that we'll get there on esports too.
So, Eric, sorry, I have one follow-up, Jimmy, and then I'll hand it over to you. How far do you think we are away from, because you alluded to the parent component, which is, I think, an interesting part of the college esports equation, right? How far away are we from parents of kids who are in college completely accepting the fact that college esports is a legitimate pursuit when you're going to school, right? Where parents are putting their kids in esports at a young age in the hopes that they will get a college scholarship for esports, right? Are we 2 years away, Eric? Are we 10 years? Are we 5 years? Like, what's the timeline before we reach sort of total acceptance of esports at the college level? And I really mean at the parent level.
Yeah, I think we're 5 to 10. I think it depends. It always depends. Because there's more progressive and knowledgeable parents in some places than others. But at Level Next, that's one of the things that we're doing. We're elevating that awareness. We're very proud of the fact that with Madden, we talked about Madden earlier. Now several schools have given full scholarships to Madden players because they saw them in our tournaments. Boise State, there's a Madden player who got a scholarship there. West Virginia, who just won the Madden player, Noah, he has a full ride to West Virginia now the professor, I mean, the college president has a tweet video out, or tweeted a video of him, talking about esports and how proud he is that Noah won the national championship for West Virginia. I mean, that's great. And if more parents see that, I think that they'll, be more apt to that. Because again, and one of the beauties about esports is we know it's more inclusive, right? Anybody can play esports. You don't have to be an athlete groomed from early on, be a supreme being to play at the college level or at any level. You can be tall, short, big, large, any color, any gender, you can do it, and you can play each other. So I think that adds to its popularity too. So I think it's going to happen, 5 to 10 years. I don't think it's going to happen real fast, but we're making great strides, and I'm proud of Level Next to be part of that too. From awareness and opportunity and the prize pools that we're providing.
Jimmy, sorry, I cut you off earlier. No, that answer.
That was great. I'm happy to kind of wrap with that one. If you want to head into the cross exam, or
I still have another question. I want to dig here. I find this fascinating because I think that I agree with you, Eric, that the scale of the opportunity with college esports is massive, right? Where another area where I'm curious is, what is the purpose of college esports, right? Like with traditional sports, we affectionately call meat sports here. With traditional sports, you get like college is often maybe not so much in some sports, but often the path to pro, right? You play in high school, you play in college, and then you get drafted to play in the pro leagues. With esports, what I see most often is usually, when you're college age, you're sort of already past, not your prime, but right, kids are getting recruited into Call of Duty League and Overwatch League and League of Legends at like 16 years old, right? They're not college age. Is there a future where college, the purpose of college esports really is to be on this path to pro, or does it have another purpose? Is it scholarship? Is it just hobby? Does it tie into the curriculum? Like what role does college play in that esports ecosystem as a whole in your mind?
Yeah, Paul, I think it's all of the above, right? I mean, there's the scholastic side of it. We talked about, parents and their kids getting into another, the career of video games, and esports provides one path there, from the production standpoint, the marketing standpoint, the player standpoint, the coaching standpoint. There's a lot of things around that where you can get a career in esports. For example, Sheridan, the person on my team, we both started the same day. She is an English major. She graduated last December from Florida State as an English major, but she was the social media officer for the Florida State esports program. Now she's working at Learfield, and in the gaming career, and it's something she's passionate about. And her folks are thrilled. They were thinking English major, games. What's she going to do? Now she's got a job at Learfield, right? So, but there's varsity athletics. So there is a path to pro, I presume. But I don't think that's what's going to make collegiate esports great. I think it's more that the inclusion of it. It's a lot more people can play it. You can represent your school for a chance to win a national championship. You can, earn scholarships from it. You can earn cash prizes from it. The whole NIL situation will benefit esports gamers as well. So I think it's all of the above. To your point, it's not just varsity or I guess just varsity.
Eric, that brings us to everyone's favorite new segment. We call this Judge Jimmy's cross-examination. And so what's going to happen is Jimmy's going to give you a handful of rapid fire questions here, digging a little bit more into who you are, Eric, as a person, as a gamer. Judge Jimmy, take it away.
Thanks, Paul. All right, Eric, just a few quick ones here for you. All right, Eric, first question here. Let's see. What was your favorite video game growing up playing or in the last 20 years?
Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor. Sweet. I don't think we've gotten that one, Paul, have we?
I don't think we have.
Nice.
Great game, though.
Great game.
That's what threw me off. I thought that was going to be your first question. And I was trying to figure out, like, it was Medal of Honor. I guess it could have been adapted, but it wasn't. So I couldn't get it out of my head.
No worries. In that regard, when you're playing, when you're working hard, just what's your go-to snack or drink?
I drink a lot of water, a lot of coffee, a lot of beer.
I was going to say it started very healthy, Eric.
Depends on the time of day and how
I'm not sure what the beer does for performance in esports, but
it doesn't work. Don't try that at home, kids.
Don't try that at home. That's it.
I'm really interested to ask this next one, just because given your experience, I think, in growing these communities, what's your social media platform of choice? One that you found not just the most personal enjoyment using, but also the most success in utilizing for your campaigns?
Oh, for my marketing campaigns?
Yeah.
Twitter.
Nice.
Twitter's number one now, but it's evolved over time.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. Great. And let's end with one more. Eric, you have so many students and college athletes and kids that are coming through your programs, your tournaments, your events. If you could go back to school, or rather for any of them listening, what class, field, area of study would you recommend that they pursue to land a career in the gaming industry, not just esports, but really metaverse and gaming at large?
Engineering. The engineers are charting their own path now. Software development, dev engineers, they can, you help build the game, you help build the platforms, you help build the systems. Everybody needs engineers.
Nuts and bolts of it all. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Eric, the prosecution rests. Thank you for entertaining us there, and back to you, Paul.
Eric, for our listeners, if you want to be followed, or Learfield, or any of the other brands you've got under your umbrella, like, where can people follow you, find out more? What socials or what platforms?
Level Next GG. Please follow us on Level Next GG. We've got some big announcements coming up next week. Some big tournaments in the pipeline, with hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, as well as national championships for the colleges.
Very cool. And any area where people can find you, maybe directly or follow you, or what you're up to personally?
LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn.
Look, it's
I'm not
a business podcast.
Social media. I don't do a lot of posting.
We're a business podcast, and so a lot of our listeners are on LinkedIn. So Eric Hartness on LinkedIn. Eric, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Jimmy, thank you as always. For our listeners, guys, just a couple of things. Make sure to follow Business of Esports everywhere, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, you name it. Business of Esports or Biz Esports on every single platform. Leave a review on the podcast on Spotify or Google Play or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get the podcast. Really appreciate that. And make sure, show up for our Wednesday evening live stream. It's a lot of fun. We do a live show, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. It gets broadcasted literally every platform on the planet. And the best part is we get to talk about gaming news live with you guys, with the fans, with our audience. And I guarantee you will have fun. So that's Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Jimmy, thank you. Eric, thank you. To our listeners, thank you guys. And as always, we will see you next week.